So let me ask about whether you could just eat carbohydrates or proteins. What's an example of a carbohydrate?
Pasta, bread.
Pasta, bread,
Vegetables,
vegetables. What kind of vegetables? All vegetables?
broccoli, sweet potatoes,
Broccoli and sweet potatoes. Yeah. Okay.
rice,
Rice. Pretty much a lot of things that are white, like breads, flours, the flour that you eat, make bread out of, right? Those types of things are carbohydrates for sure. Now, when we look at carbohydrates, we can break them into many different, we can utilize them in different ways. But carbohydrate is kind of a big type of a term for many different things. So we can have very small particles of carbohydrates, and then we use those to build up to make a starch, which is a large molecule of carbohydrates. So we can have monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. Those are the kind of the delineation of how this all fits together. Monosaccharides, like one molecule of sugar, glucose, fructose. Okay, those can be monosaccharides. Disaccharides is like table sugar, sucrose. Sucrose is two pieces or two molecules of carbohydrates. And then polysaccharides are multiple glucose molecules or multiple monosaccharides put together. But we use glucose as our primary food, primary cellular fuel to make ATP, energy. So when you eat your Twinkie, you break it down. We break it down from a carbohydrate to the smaller, to disaccharides, and finally to a monosaccharide, glucose. That's transported into the cells. The cell takes that, runs it through the mitochondrion, and we make energy. We make ATP. That's what drives our cells. The muscle contractions, our thought waves, everything is driven by that ATP molecule. So it's very, very important that we do this, right? We have to have that ATP molecule. Carbohydrates are hydrophilic. What's hydrophilic mean? Remember we had that? Likes water, right? So the general formula is CHNO, CH2ON. N is just the number of molecules that are involved. But glucose itself is C6H12O6. 6 carbon, 12 hydrogen, and 6 oxygen. If you don't ever remember any other chemical compound, this is probably one of the most important ones that you'll ever need to know. Because this is what drives your body. This makes your body work, glucose. So at the beginning of words, you get this in medical terminology class, but we have, if it says ose at the end of it, that's a sugar. Lactose, glucose, dextrose, sucrose, those are all sugars, OSE. If you see ASE, that's an enzyme. Nuclease, proteases, those are all enzymes that make reactions go faster. Now some people are intolerant to lactose. What is lactose?
Can't have milk.
Can't drink milk. Why is that? How many people in here drink milk? Okay, is anybody can't drink milk? Intolerant?
I used to not be able to, but then I don't know. One day I just was able to. Like my doctors had me not taking it because they thought I was lactose intolerant, but
Now you are. Now you can tolerate it. So, in reality, pretty much the whole population of the world is intolerant to lactose. Oh wow, that's a pretty big statement, right? For some reason we have difficulties digesting lactose because we lose the chemical enzymes in our body that does that. At age 4, we lose the enzymes to help us digest milk, lactose. So we tolerate it, but some people can't tolerate it. That's why they call it lactose intolerant. Yes?
what happens if you can't tolerate it? You just throw up.
Some people that can't tolerate have violent actions like that. They have upset stomach, pain in the stomach, and lots of gas, diarrhea. Yeah, it goes through them. It really messes them up. But in reality, they've proven, they've looked at this and taken these DNA samples, and they look back and they found that there's only one group of people really that have created a tolerance for lactose. They can digest it, they can utilize it. The rest of us have kind of gotten away from it. So if you drink milk, it's okay, but you're not getting the sugar out of it. You're not going to get as much out of it as what they say you will. So milk is a good drink, but it's not the optimal drink that they make it out to sound like on TV. Okay, it's kind of like juice. It does the body good, but it's not the only thing. You couldn't survive on milk the way it is. Yes.
Is there like a food you can survive just on?
Lasagna. At least I could for a while. Is there an ideal food that you can? No, I mean, let's look at it this way. Picture what's your favorite food? Leonardo, what's your favorite food?
I don't think I have one.
You don't have one? If you had is there a food that you like to eat every day, maybe?
I'm too adventurous.
Too adventurous?
Yeah. I don't know. Pasta.
Pasta, okay. Let's say it's spaghetti, just out of curiosity, right? Just for fun. Now, if I put spaghetti in front of you 3 meals a day, would you eventually like that spaghetti?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I've
Did
been
you get
eating one spaghetti for like 19 years.
Would you get sick and tired of it, though? Every day, 3 times a meal, 3 times a day?
Probably.
Probably. Would your body get tired of it? Probably. Because it'd be the same nutrients over and over and over again. You wouldn't have the variation that you're talking about. You wouldn't have the fruits, the vegetables, the vitamin C, all those green things that you should be having wouldn't be there.
So what if you just had green things?
You could survive, but you're gonna miss out on some protein. So you have to balance it. You have to have meats or nuts or beans to get your proteins as well as your carbohydrates and things like this. But the carbohydrates are important. But what I'm getting at is if you eat the same thing, your body gets tired of it. You can't do it. It's kind of like your dog. You know, you give your dog the same food every day for all of his life. Talk about a boring life, right? You get the same
That's why
food.
my dog is my table scraps.
Table scraps, but don't tell anybody, right? Yes?
Why are dogs supposed to have chocolate?
Well, you can give them chocolate, but you're going to have to clean up after them. It's kind of like the same thing what happens to people with milk. It goes squirting right out the back end. So they can get sick to the point they eat too much of it. It'll make them sick. They can dehydrate and die from it. So, yeah, not good. So saccharides, monosaccharides, simple sugars, disaccharides are 2 sugars put together. Polysaccharides are many. Poly means many. So polysaccharides are chains of glucose molecules put in end to end. So starch is a very big molecule. So when the little plants, the little potato plants, put those potatoes in the ground, what are they actually doing? Why do they make a potato? You got this nice big green plant above the ground. And then under the ground, there's these nice, supple potatoes. What are they? Why do they do that? Just so we can eat them?
Are they storing the starch?
They're storing the starch, right? They're storing that starch for a rainy day for them. So they can draw upon that starch, pull it back up in their plants, and utilize it if there's no sunshine. It's also the part of the plant that is their baby. You take that potato plant, put it in the ground next spring, it grows a new plant. It's the new baby, right? So we're actually eating the babies of the potatoes. Oh, cannibalism, sort of, right? Not quite. And it sounds like it, but it's not. So that's what the starch is. It's just a lot of glucose molecules packed together. Lots and lots of energy. Now cellulose is kind of the same thing. It's glucose molecules put together, but it's very rigid and tough. That desk that you're sitting under is comprised of cellulose. food. It comes from plants. Plants put the cellulose together, and it makes a very tough cell wall around the membrane of the cell, the plant cell. It gives it the size, its shape, its dimension of the trees or plants, but we can't digest cellulose. If you eat celery, what happens to the celery?
It's stringy.
It gets stringy, but when we eat it, we have to break it up. It's tough to chew, right? And it goes all the way, it goes through you. We don't digest a lot of the celery. We don't get a lot of good out of the celery. Unless you put some peanut butter on it, then it's really good.
That's the only way to eat celery.
That's it.
But isn't celery like
Unless you
a high percentage of water?
Celery has lots of water, yeah.
So like
You'll get
you're
some
talking
water.
about just like the stuff that isn't water.
Right. You'll get some water, you'll get some fiber out of it, but you don't get an excessive amount of nutrients out of celery. In fact, some people almost call it a negative food because if you eat it, it takes so much energy to digest it that you can't get much out of it. So it's good stuff. Celery's not. I had some last night with peanut butter on it. I mean, I just love that stuff. But so it's good fiber to go through you. You have to have fiber so that everything does go through you and makes it good. Glycogen we talked about on our 3x5 cards is a storage facility for our starches. Our carbohydrates are stored in the liver, in the muscles, and we can utilize it when we need it. Kind of a little reserve mechanism. But it takes a long time to get through that so we can start burning fat. Question, yes?
So, since it takes energy to make fat food, is that why people want to nap after they eat a meal? Because their body uses
Usually the reason that people want to nap after they eat is because they get so much sugar, it kind of gives them a sugar drunk almost. They get too much food in them. If you don't eat that much food, you usually don't get tired after you eat. If you overeat, or if you eat turkey with tryptophan in it, you get tired. But you go out for a Thanksgiving meal and you eat 4,000 calories, you just pound it down like 2 or 3 plates full, you just get so sluggish you can't even move. Too many carbohydrates, too much. Your body is trying to digest the food, and a part of the nervous system comes into play called the parasympathetic nervous system. Brittany knows all about this. And it has the system that makes the body digest yourself, and it slows you down, right? There's 2 parts of the system. One speeds you up, the sympathetic, makes you go, 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 gets you excited if a bear's running away from you. And the other part of our nervous system says, no, let's just sit here and we'll eat this, and we'll digest the food, and we'll relax. When you eat, that part of it comes into play. We shut off the nervousness, and then you get relaxed and you go to sleep. But most of the time, if you get really tired after you eat, you've eaten too much. That's really what it is. Lipids. Yes?
Back on that other thing, I was reading somewhere that a good way to like restore energy after a workout or something was to eat gummy bears, because they said it was like a source of pure glucose, and so like it would help like replenish the glycogen like really fast. Is that?
And a lot of people are using chocolate milk. A lot of the swimmers use chocolate milk because it has fat in it. It has some sugar if they can get some out of it, and it has some vitamin D. It's got some good nutrients in it, and it doesn't upset the stomach. But gummy bears, you have to be careful. If you eat a bunch of those, you get a big sugar rush, and so it spikes your insulin up and down. It's not as slow releasing as what some of them would be. So, yeah, I'm not too keen on hyper anything, too much of anything. So lipids are fats. Fats. Give me an example of a fat.
Omega-3.
Omega-3 fats. Yep.
Omega-6.
What are those for?
Those are like good fats, aren't they?
Those are good fats. They help with inflammation and all sorts of fun stuff like that. It keeps your body in tune. It makes you have good for your nervous system. Lots of aspects that way. But we have main types of fat. We have neutral fats, we have triglycerides, we have phospholipids, we also have steroids, and eicosanoids. So those are we have different types of fats that we body uses for different things. Now, the main types of fats, if this will change, I think we have neutral fats that are solid fats and liquid fats. So if you have a fat that is solid at room temperature, it's different than one that's liquid in room temperature, right? So we have two different ones. But fat itself has lots and lots of energy, almost twice as much energy per molecule as carbohydrates and proteins. So if you eat just fat, you're going to get fat. You can have more calories than you need. Can you survive just on fat? You could short term, but long term, no. You're going to be deficient. But short term, yes, you'll get a lot of energy out of it. Your body will utilize it. It's harder to digest it than carbohydrates, but yes, we can live on those types of things for small periods of time. It also helps to insulate us. It creates a cushion or a wrap around our bodies that makes us softer, keeps us, if we have a lot of fat on our butt, we fall down, we bounce a little bit, you know. Babies do that. You watch little babies when they're learning how to walk, they fall, like boom, they bounce kind of like this, right? But fat is important. It gives us that insulation, keeps us warm when we go outside. If you're real thin and skinny, you get cold fast. If you're heavier, you can sustain a little bit of time outside without. Some people that are heavier, they go outside without coats on. Other people have 3 or 4 coats on, earmuffs. You know, they get cold just sitting around. So there's a difference in how much we get. Now, we have saturated fats and unsaturated fats. A saturated fat is a fat that every carbon has a single bond coming off of it. And a saturated fat is solid. So something like lard, butter, margarine. Margarine's kind of a bad example. Butter and fat, like bacon grease. When you cook a bunch of bacon, the grease sets in a container, you dump the grease off, it solidifies, it gets hard, right? The other type, the unsaturated fats, do not have one single bond in them. They have several multi-bonds inside those fat molecules. And what that does is it makes them liquidy. They're not as solid. So things like canola oil, safflower oil, corn oil, olive oil, these are all unsaturated fats and usually are better for you than the saturated fats. Saturated fats have been linked to heart disease, different things like this. Another type is a phospholipid. Where do we find phospholipids at? Very, very common in the human body. Probably over 1 trillion times we see them in the human body. Well, it's part of the blood, yep. The ones that have cells. Because every cell in the human body has a phospholipids in it. Phospholipid has a tail and it has a head. They have different properties. These make up the hydrophilic and the hydrophobic portions of that plasma membrane. If you don't remember this, review this in your book or in your biology book. Okay, so the next one we have is steroids. So what's a steroid? Uh-oh. Should have had a V8. So give me what do people use steroids? What do they do?
Get bigger.
Get bigger, stronger,
Get jacked.
tougher, right?
It's all fake though, it's all liars.
They get-
Then when you stop using it.
They get buff, right? They get really good looking. Well, maybe not good looking, but their bodies start feeling good, right? Stronger, bigger. But that's one type of steroid. That's not the type of steroid we talk about in the human body. Our bodies make steroids all the time, but they're different than just to make us bigger and stronger.
They keep us healthy.
To keep us healthy, we have to have steroids. We have to have steroids to grow to the size that we normally are, right? So we have to have cholesterol to make it work. Cholesterol is part of this steroid process. Vitamin D, bile salts, all these types of things are part of these cholesterol and steroid complexes. We need these steroids for our bodies to function. And yes, we have to have cholesterol in our bodies. Every one of your cells has cholesterol in it. That's what gives it the fluidity, the shape of the cell is done by cholesterol. Bailey, do you have a question?
Yeah. So like, if you were to get steroid shots, like, what's in it?
What's in it?
Yeah.
Well, you can have dianabol or they're androgens. They're basically steroids that produce more testosterone, is really what they are. So if you give a male testosterone shots or steroid shots, they get bigger, their voice gets deeper, their testicles shrink up because they don't need to make the testosterone in the body anymore. So they have problems. They get very angry and mean and all those kind of things. Yes?
Like last week, my dad was rushed to the hospital because of like an allergic reaction, and they put him on steroids, but they ended up they heart monitors up to him because he had steroids. Why did they put steroids in him?
Steroids are not just to make you bigger, but they also are there to help to mediate like inflammation. So you can have people have steroids if they have a hard time breathing. It'll open up their blood vessels so that they can breathe better. So there's a lot of reasons or a lot of ways that they use steroids. Now, if they give them steroids in large amounts, they're going to make sure that they monitor them because it can make their heart rate go up or their blood pressure go up, and that's not a good thing, see? So,
People go crazy on them.
yeah. So you have to be careful. Anything in excess can be a problem, and people are sensitive sometimes. So it's not going to be a big effect on them, but it's just something they have to monitor so that there is no problems. Other fat-soluble things, we have vitamins that have to have fats to be able to dissolve in. Vitamin A, E, and K are very important for those. Lipoproteins are proteins and fats mixed together. You find these in the blood, and they help us to create nutrients for our bodies. Carbs have 4 calories per gram. Fats have 9 calories per gram. So if you want to get fat real quick, just eat lard, butter, all that stuff, and you will get fat very quickly. You don't need to eat much for either. So if we look at, we need about the size of a playing cards for protein. It'd be about half of that for fats to survive in a day.
So just need a stick of butter.
Yeah, maybe like a half stick of butter, and you're good for the day. You got enough calories. Would you get hungry? Yeah, you'd probably get pretty hungry because there's nothing in your gut to work on. But you can survive with it.
Isn't that like what dog sled people do? They just eat it like butter.
Yeah, they get a lot of fat, especially dogs. And if you're in the desert, instead of eating a lot of carbohydrates that take up a lot of water, you eat fat because fat and water don't mix. So the fats will be digested and you get lots of energy and you don't need the water to digest them with. But as you digest your foods, you also produce water. We'll talk about that later too. Proteins. Proteins are amino acids put together. And we get proteins from our foods, and we break those proteins down into amino acids. Amino acids then turn around in our cells and produce proteins that we need to make our bodies work. So there's primary structures of proteins. Secondary structures are getting bigger and more convoluted. They may have more processes to them, and they'll eventually get to the point where they're very twisted and gnarly and big, and we can use those for different things. Proteins are made by our bodies in our cells, and we'll talk about that when we talk about transcription and translation coming up soon. So we have, these are the amino acids that we need. These are required in our diet. We have to get these when we eat. So if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, anybody vegan or vegetarian in here? No? Okay. If you are, if you decide to do so, you have to make sure that you are getting the proper proteins in your diet, or you can have problems. You can become deficient. So these are the ones you have to eat. You have to get them from your foods. Meats, beans. If you're eating red meats, chicken, fish, any of those things, you're going to be okay. Not a problem. You're going to get all the amino acids that you need. But if you're not eating fish or any type of meat, then you have to be careful, make sure that you get the proper proteins from your beans. Okay. So these are the non-essential amino acids. We can make these from other sources in our body. We can convert these chemicals into something that we can utilize in ourselves. So these are non-essential amino acids. Lots and lots of them. The other types of proteins, the tertiary and the quaternary, these are getting to be bigger proteins. They are more complex proteins, and they form functional units. They have a specific function. Maybe they are the protein that makes up a hormone that we need for our bodies to function properly. We can make those in our system. We don't have to ingest them. We have fibrous proteins that are just pretty much a big structure of a protein. Then we have globular proteins. We find these in our antibodies, our hormones, and enzymes. These are really important proteins that help our bodies to function the way they should. Now, we can take our proteins and we can damage our proteins. So how many people eat their steak raw? Medium rare.
Still weeds and moves.
Still cows? Still moves around? So what do we do when we heat our meat up? What do we do with our meat? Does it make it better or does it make it worse? What does it do?
I think it makes it better.
Makes it taste better, right? But in reality, when we heat proteins up, we denature it. We take some of the good out of the protein so that it doesn't work properly. Right? So if I take a steak and I throw it on the grill and I leave it there until it's got this black crust on it, right? And you flip it over and you make another black crust on the other side. So now you got about this much crust, quarter inch of crust, maybe a quarter inch of meat in the middle that's really done, and another quarter inch. Is that a good steak? No, you're not getting much out of it because you've denatured the meat that's in there. Same way when you cook an egg. When you cook an egg, you denature some of the proteins. That's why bodybuilders and weightlifters eat their eggs raw. They just slam them down. And I went to school, I knew a guy that would eat 12 eggs a day raw. Look. He'd put them in a glass, drink 6 at a time in the morning and 6 at night, and just suck them down. Yes?
But can that make you sick?
Can it make you sick? Oh yes, you can get salmonella, but you have to remember that inside the egg is fairly well protected. The outside of the egg is what you get your salmonella from, your diseases from. The inside of the egg is fairly sterile. It's pretty good stuff.
So does the salmonella travel in the shell?
Travel through the shell?
Yeah.
Not usually. Not usually. It's a pretty solid shell.
Wait, so should we like wash our eggs off before we use them?
You should, especially if you're gonna lick them or eat them. But if you boil your egg, you're gonna boil all that stuff away. So it's a hard-boiled egg. You peel them, you're okay. But if you have just a raw egg and you crack it, you get some of that on the egg yolk, and then you eat it. Yes, you can get salmonella from that. Right? Okay. So keep that in mind. If you overcook your food, it can be hard on your digestion. You're not going to get as much out of it. Now, an enzyme is a chemical that helps us to lower the activation levels of our reactions. It makes our reactions go quicker. It's a chemical that enters into the reaction, but it does not become part of the reaction. I always look at it like a policeman in a corner after a football game. Okay, so he's standing in the middle of the intersection, directing traffic everywhere to go. You go this way, you go that way. Come on, let's go. Come on, let's go. Right? You've seen those cops do that? That's kind of what an enzyme is. It stands there, it tells them what to do, but it never gets in the car and drives the car. That's kind of what an enzyme is. It moves them back and forth, keeps everything moving. It drops the activation level so that the reactions go faster. All right, so we'll start with this on Friday. We'll finish up the chemistry on Friday, and we'll get started on the cells.
Do we need to bring a certain lab tomorrow?
Labs tomorrow. Oh, let me think what we got tomorrow. I'll email you. So watch your email for labs tomorrow. Okay. See you later.
I got a question.
Yes.
So you know, last time when I had to go run down to the library to go print out